Undertale. The very mention of this title implies big leagues. Few games have reached the level of popularity this indie did, being an absolute craze of its time. The Undertale fever caused such a big sentiment of love over its fanatics that to this day they are still making countless fanarts such as animations, songs and even fan games. It's been 10 years, so in order to get to the context right, I think it's fairly necessary to meet Undertale's creator and the story behind its development. In their youth, Toby Fox and his three brothers used to make games in the infamous RPG Maker. Going through high school, he developed his first Earthbound mods, a game that left a mark in the upcoming developer, and that would become a great inspiration for his masterpiece. Toby found your average RPG combat system boring, so with peak inspiration at hand, he decided to create an alternative that would stand out, full of compelling characters and using gameplay as a means to tell the story, as a way to stand out amid other titles, where one doesn't directly affect the other. The project, as we know, was set up in Kickstarter, with a starting goal of $5,000. In the end, it got 10 times that amount. Yeah, over $50,000 of insanity. Having met the finance with money to spare and invest into Dogecoin, Toby set hands on development. It was an independent process that lasted 32 months. He chose to work this way not to depend on other people that risk slowing work down. Femi Chang, animator and illustrator, was the head artist behind the game, doing concept art first and then providing most of the sprites. Toby has stated time and time again that the game's art style will probably remain the same with a bigger team. He mentions there's a psychological thread that says audiences stick more to characters with simple design than to complex detailed artwork. The iconic soundtrack is an entirely one-man work by Toby. Yes, not only did he build up a revolutionary game in 32 months, he also learned composition and brought some bangers to match his title. A damn genius, if you ask me. As you might guess, Undertale comes from a person who wanted to break the mold. A player who was tired of the same old turn-based matches and wanted to fuse narrative with gameplay in a way only him could. But is that all it takes to create a masterpiece beloved by millions? What's the thing that truly makes people love Undertale? Today I want to take you along and revisit the factors that, in my opinion, were decisive for the massive success of Undertale. Before starting, if you are enjoying so far, let me remind you there's many ways you can support me, but a like does wonders for this channel and all the content like this we're bringing soon. If you wouldn't like to miss out, don't forget to subscribe. You can always report and dox me later. With no further ado, let's start. As I mentioned, Toby wanted something new for his mechanics. He was tired of the typical corridor simulation that has you putting down endless enemies without question. He proposed a system where you're always facing different outcomes, simply depending on the way you play. Whether you slice every frog in half before knowing their names, or go Buddhist and reach a mutual understanding, the game has different routes throughout for your decisions, having several endings by consequence. Hold that thought. What do you mean talking with the enemies instead of puncturing their lungs? Yeah, in that sense, Undertale stands out with its use of dialogue. Sure, for a new player this might be odd. That's why our first blind playthroughs are most commonly neutral routes, because it's pretty likely we have crashed out on some random monsters along the way. This simple feature allows us to experience the game in a more personal way, so to speak. That enemy coming to cut us in a million pieces isn't some big bad anymore, but a complex being with problems, questions and stories. Thanks to this, the game feels much more emotional and human, even diving deep into the routine of characters that were enemies during their first encounter. I can't stress this enough. It's a game where you can befriend your enemies through dialogue and watch them at home making supper. Simply pure originality. Undertale might not have the deepest narrative of all time, but it's full of charming storytelling and plot points that are functional for their roles, relying heavily on the characters instead. The introduction is simple, but yet again it works. The world split in half. Humans and monsters. Humans won over the land and expelled the monsters to the underground. A long time after this, a little boy trips over a cliff and ends up falling into the underground. where the adventure begins. The first thing we see as players is a rancid little flower that tries to delete us by throwing some crappy petals. According to his own words, it is to destroy or be destroyed, a phrase that can generate distrust for future confrontations and consequently cause us to make decisions we may regret later. Anyways, we meet Toriel, the nicest co-mom in the galaxy who gives us a mini tutorial and in the end wants us to stay. But since we are the biggest thugs in the whole neighborhood and we want to continue with the game we paid for, we stand up to her and a confrontation begins. Well, that's basically the stake of the game. There is a mini arc where we meet a character through several scenes until they culminate in a duel. And as I said before, we can finish them off or not. That is where the routes arise. Undertale gives three alternatives: the neutral route, the most common and variable of the game, because whether you eradicate the 99% of population from the underground or you just crush a single rancid bug by accident, you are going to end up in this one without any margin for error. Our ending is going to be against Omega Flowey, that crappy little flower. This ending, as the name of the road spoils, is going to be neutral, neither good or bad, but still quite epic. Then the Sheno side road, where we finish off all the possible monsters to fight in the game. Yes, that means we practically extinguish life in the underground. This route is the darkest and the one in which if you get fond of the characters you will have a bad time. But as a thing to highlight, it has the second best combat in the game, which is against Undyne Tundyne, or why not, the best of all, the fight against Sans, which indisputably has the best theme song of all Undertale. Then we have the Pacifist Road, which tells us the canonical and happy ending, where we discovered that the crappy flower in reality was the son of the monster's king, who had lost his life after some humans attacked him. Here we are given one of the most emotional moments in the entire industry, and the game ends with the monsters arriving to the human world which they have been expelled. A nearly perfect ending. What am I doing? Why, of course, praying for a game with a soundtrack as good as Undertale. If there's one thing most people know Toby Fox magnum opus for, is the music. Seriously, I can't explain the pleasure of seeing these trashy style graphics paired with such incredible tracks in the back. The fight can be the most static, emotionless thing in the world, but the tracks transport us, motivate us, push us over the top until we go, dude, I'm trading blows with this badass OP skeleton who dodges every single attack. But I'm still having a great time, partly thanks to the music, almost like it were a real fight. Brutal in it, even without traditionally competent graphics for the modern times, nor with the best choreographed fights or with the best effects. Even so, it's more effective than titans of the industry. Simply amazing. We owe this strongly to this spectacular soundtrack. It is simple. Remember that time you cried watching a series or a movie whose absence defines how much a scene reaches us? That's right, the music. The music intensifies the moments widely. Without going too far, there's a reason why watching two rats fighting over food with Linkin Park in the background is the most epic thing there is. Another of the Undertale's very clear strengths, so recognizable that anyone can tell them apart just by looking at a silhouette, thus confirming Toby Fox's explanation. Yes, that's something about simple designs. Undertale aside, it's curious that the designs that we remember most and that we are most fond of are mostly quite simple or minimalistic. Well, Toby Fox took advantage of this to give us a very memorable identity to his characters, and as a last punch, he made them super charismatic. From characters with jokes so bad that they are laughable to complete psychopaths. Toby knew how to form a cast which we can sympathize and empathize with. Toriel, our second mom, Papyrus aka Slenderman, the Rizzler Sans, the Silverside Undyne, the awkward Alphys, the insufferable Metadon, the noble Asgore, and the most wholesome being Asriel. A cast that overflows with personality and that sweets the game like a glove. To put it bluntly, I do not hesitate to declare that Undertale is one of the great masterpieces of video game. Yes, video games in general. It is also undeniable the natural talent that Toby has to make such a perfect game, with such a groundbreaking combat system, a quite emotional story that touches your soul, a soundtrack of those that no longer exist, and characters to whom we keep unconditional love, except for you. I feel that living just like this will be a little, I don't know, unfair? Before ending the video, I think it is necessary to give the Undertale community the recognition it deserves. A very talented community which contributed very good animations like those of Shael Peñalosa, who created an Undertale animated series as if it were a damn anime, with characters, dialogues, combats, character arcs. For God's sake, watch this, it's pure gold. In short, countless creations that remain for history, all born as a result of the incredible world of Undertale. And remember, we are always praying for Deltarune to be finished.